Hello there my Jedi and Sith friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars video. Okay, so today we've got some huge updates for the future of Star Wars movies, but first, every now and then, as was the case with The Hunt for Ben Solo, as was the case for Del Toro's Jabba the Hutt, we hear about a Star Wars movie that was canned, but that was never announced in the first place. Kathleen Kennedy once explained this process, how the term in development doesn't really mean much, and there are so many secret Star Wars projects that never made it to principal photography that unfortunately we'll never learn about. But today my friends, one of them has come to light. Paddington 2 creators Paul King and Simon Farnaby were once asked to make a Star Wars film. This would have centered around a new hero droid. It would have been a standalone, it would have been quirky, and connecting the dots, I wonder if this was going to be related to Star Wars A Droid Story. Obviously that was going to be a Disney Plus show, but it's similarly centered around a new hero who was going to go on a mission with R2-D2 and C-3PO. And interestingly enough, the movie isn't actually dead. It's being reworked into a standalone sci-fi movie. So it's a bit like Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon, although I think this film's going to be much better than that, where originally the director was working on a Star Wars project, but the stars didn't align, and instead of scrapping the premise, they turned it into their own film. Not much else is revealed about it. These two certainly know how to put together a great film, and one that was centered around a droid could have been a pretty fun spin-off, his adventures across the galaxy. But now my dear friends, some huge reveals for the future of Star Wars films. As you're probably aware at this point, next week, to the day, is D23 Expo. And I don't know about you guys, but in the build up to fan events and conventions, I'm always a bit nervous, especially when we've been promised big announcements and trailers, because there's always that anxiety of, well, what if we don't get anything? And in the past, at certain Disney Plus Day events, Investor Day events, even previous D23s, we've been left feeling shortchanged, and it's all about going in with the right expectations. Now last time, 2 summers ago, as Star Wars fans, D23 was pretty darn decent. We had our first trailer for Skeleton Crew, there was some exclusive footage shown to those in attendance for Andor's second season and The Mandalorian Grogu, but some of that footage did leak online, and we had just enough to sink our teeth into. This year, we're in a very different position. I think we can all agree that Lucasfilm really needs to step it up. And the good news is that, based on those in the know, those who have their ears pressed up against the walls of the House of Mouse, at the very minimum there is going to be something for the next Star Wars movie, Star Wars Starfighter. It could be a teaser trailer, hopefully it's going to be public, but that is the one thing that everyone is saying is going to be the main event. Lucasfilm is desperate to start marketing it, and today my friends, we have some more information thanks to the former editor-in-chief of the Diz Insider, Skylar Schuler, who's heard a few interesting rumblings behind the scenes, and while most of what he says is speculative, he's heard a few interesting rumors for the future of Star Wars films beyond Sean Levy's movie. This is genuinely unexpected. Let's dive straight in. So he begins by talking about the things he's heard about Starfighter. Here's the quote: "The film has not had any test screenings, but I did speak to one studio insider who saw a cut of the film, and they shared with me, and get this is the best Star Wars project since Disney acquired the franchise in 2012. Those are some insanely strong words. The best Star Wars project since 2012. Better than Rebels, The Clone Wars Season 7, both seasons of Andor, The Mandalorian, if you're a sequel fan then the sequel trilogy, the best Star Wars project under the mouse." And we also know that Kevin Feige and others have praised it, but apparently it's the best thing that Disney Star Wars has ever produced. Now look, taste is always going to be subjective. I don't know if they've seen every Star Wars project to date, I don't know what they've watched and haven't watched, but according to them, this is the real deal, and I hope they're right. This is what Star Wars needs at the moment. We don't just need a minor win, we need a monumental win. And keep in mind my friends, originally Dave Filoni did not want this film to be made, but then, after having learnt more about the script, and as the film took shape, Sean Levy won him over and Filoni changed his mind. So maybe this Disney insider and Kevin Feige and those who said that Starfighter is the real test for this franchise are all onto something. Maybe they know how good Starfighter really is. But then my friends, the insider gives us a bit of a sobering reality check, because they're not certain if the trailer next week is going to be public. Honestly, that'd be a huge mistake for Lucasfilm. In today's day and age where someone's gonna film it anyway and share the footage across social media, why not get fans excited and talking about it 9 months out? They never seem to learn their lesson about marketing. Here's the quote: "We will definitely see a poster for Starfighter and may get a trailer, but something tells me it may be for those in attendance. The cast is expected to be there, so we should hear and see some new details as well. This is Lucasfilm's only dated 2027 theatrical release and is already in post-production, making it the obvious headliner." This paragraph worries me a bit. If we're only getting a poster and hearing information secondhand, I wouldn't expect anything for Ahsoka Season 2. I know we all want to see official footage, the new Baylan, played by Roy McCann, Anakin's Force Ghost, Shin, Huyang, but hearing this, I'm gonna set my expectations low so we don't get disappointed next weekend. But if we do get trailers for both and they're both public, then that's gonna be a massive win. Lucasfilm needs to up the ante. They need to build some hype. 2027 is just around the corner, and Ahsoka Season 2 is before the movie. But then, and this is the big bit, they talk about possible announcements for other Star Wars movies. Here's the quote: "A trilogy is in the works, and that is from X-Men producer Simon Kinberg. The project is the furthest along in development. Some say this is going to be episodes 10, 11 and 12. But this source has not personally heard that." And here's another huge reveal, my friends. They say there were plans for an older Rey, further down the timeline. And as we know, at one point Helen Mirren was considered. And here's an interesting prediction. They say that while we're still years away from this trilogy hitting the big screen, there's a chance we get the titles of those films revealed, and confirmation of if they're going to be episodes 10, 11 and 12. In either case, they say behind the scenes this trilogy is in development, further along than we think. And then, they go on to talk about some of the other films in production. They believe that the Sharmina Bay-Chinoy film is completely dead, but the one movie that is very much alive, and we heard the same thing a year ago, is the Taika Waititi film. And from what they've heard, we might get a goofy D23 teaser for it. It might be like the Mel Brooks teaser for Spaceballs 2, where Taika just sits there and talks to us. But if they want to go that direction, they have to do it right, because that could go very wrong. And there were Star Wars fans already unhappy with the fact that this man was given a Star Wars project in the first place. And lastly, they say they've heard multiple times that Rogue Squadron is still on Lucasfilm's drawing board. I'm actually rather surprised about this, given the allegedly similar premise to Star Wars Starfighter, but apparently Patty Jenkins is still waiting in the wings, waiting for that phone call from Dave. They've also got some long shot predictions, or as they call them, swing for the fences predictions. And the first is the rumoured Star Wars horror movie. This is something that was leaked by Tony Gilroy himself in a random interview at the London Andor premiere. Another one is something to do with Knights of the Old Republic. Obviously that's to do with the gaming side of the franchise, which I don't think is going to be addressed at D23 Expo, but there could be tie-in projects. We heard about some untitled animated shows in the works, as well as potential upcoming live action ones. And while the assumption has been something to do with the Dark Times or the New Republic, imagine if it's a tie-in to the KOTOR remake, or better still, Fate of the Old Republic. I think we're getting into unrealistic territory, at least for D23 Expo, but you never know. I'm surprised they haven't mentioned more Shadow Lord Season 2. That's going to be one of the biggest events of next year, and it's already very far along in production. I think they've even finished it, if the rumours are true that the show was originally one long season split into 2. So if it's ready to go, there's a higher chance of a Shadow Lord Season 2 trailer than something to do with the Old Republic, but I'd love to be wrong. So, I have to be honest, even if all of this information is accurate, at D23 next week, if we get a single bit of public footage, I would take that as a win. I don't expect an update for every one of these projects. There have been rumours about Starfighter and Ahsoka, but until we see that with our own eyes, I'm going to keep my expectations in check. What do you guys think? Are you excited for D23 Expo? What do you make of these rumours about the state of the different projects? Share your thoughts in the comments down below.